to motivate. And anything that we do that is counter to that by allowing an easy out or making it too difficult, we're doing a disservice to our students. And I think that's all I have.
All right. Thanks, Matt. All right. So let me run through a few things that I have in my notes that I received from people who wrote to me, people who called. And what I would say is I think, Dr. Gotanda, if you could kind of help me by summarizing where we're going. It seems that we will have some kind of, for high school and middle school, probably a letter grade with some opportunity to do pass-fail for kids that want to. That's different than what we currently have. And that I think we will probably end up with some kind of version of no harm, but perhaps it'll be after you've completed a percentage of the classwork and that you can't not turn anything in after March 13th, but that we would actually require that you do, some percentage of work based upon what was assigned. So let me start there. So I do think that I have heard tonight and from other people, that this idea that technology is a tough one and that not everyone can access it. So that is such an understatement. It's not even funny. This night was tough. Getting all of us to connect. I can only hear some of you sometimes. I can't hear Megan very well most of the time. People can't hear Rick very well most of the time. All I've done tonight is get messages and emails from people saying how hard it is for us to communicate. So let's be really clear. In the best case scenario, this is not that easy. So we are not going to do things to kids that make something very unfair to them when they have no control over this. Because I have spent hundreds of dollars to make my house more functional so that we have more broadband so we can all function at my house because there's 3 of us that need to be on this. So luckily I had the ability to do that. I've had Cox come out. I have been on so many PTA meetings and they've been great. I don't know, I want to say maybe 6. And every single conversation starts with how hard it is for all of us to be connected when our kids are on Zooming and we're trying to Zoom in meetings. So it's not whining that we can't do this. It's tough. And some people are doing a better job than others. Some households have better, computers and access points than others. And everything about what we do moving forward has got to be with the lens of flexibility. Because we really just cannot assume that people have what they do not have. And that I just want to make sure, at 4.5 years on the school board, I have gotten plenty of emails that are not nice. I don't care if I get some more for that. This is just not okay to act like this is easy to do because it's really just not. So with that, some of my comments that I want to say are that I do know there are families that are really struggling, and I know families who are asking their kids to really figure out how they're going to get jobs and that they're going to have to help out more, and they're watching their siblings at home, and they're taking on roles that they've never taken on before. And so that needs to be, considered by all, for all families. I would advocate that we have 0 hard due dates. If a child turns their work in before the school year is over, we give them some kind of credit because maybe this week they're not doing great. Maybe they'll do better next week. We don't know, right? But let's actually give everybody the benefit of the doubt and say, we obviously want kids to turn things in on time, but that we're not going to have a hard date that we will not accept work. I think that's very punitive. I've heard from lots of people that kids want more opportunities to increase their grades, and they want more opportunities to earn points. I've heard that. I've heard that we need a schedule for assigning work, that our students have no idea when they're going to get some things assigned. Now, this is obviously a generalization. Perhaps some teachers are very good at saying, it's Friday, this is what we have for the next week. Some teachers are good at it. Some teachers are not good at it. Some people are teachers like all of us struggling with their own lives, and maybe they don't always know when they have the time to sit down and assign things. But I think I've heard from parents and students that it's very hard to manage their lives when maybe they'll get something assigned in the morning and it's due that night. And that could just be very dicey. So I think that we need some predictability as to when assignments are going to be posted. And I don't think that's unreasonable. And the platform with which we post these assignments has got to be more consistent. I know I only have one child in high school at home, and he is checking multiple things all of the time. And the funny thing is about kids, they don't care about email. They don't want to read email. They don't even think email is important. If it's on Instagram or TikTok or Snapchat, they don't really care, right? They just do not. So I think every teacher should spend a little bit of time teaching kids about email and how to manage their emails. Because most kids just look in the search bar for something like math assignment and hope that it pops up. They just get too many, and they're not good at deleting them, and they don't really have the executive functioning skills that we do to manage our email. So we went from, kids in class writing things down on the board and maybe checking their Edmodo to, if you're in high school or middle school, getting emails from 5 or 6 teachers a day. And I can assure you not everyone is keeping up with that. So, and all parents are getting lots of emails too, and we're trying to help our kids, but some of these life skills would be great to teach our kids. We joke that when our kids go to college, we tell them you have to start reading emails. In college, you actually do have to read email. So now they can just learn how to read email, at a younger age. So the multiple platforms piece is a big issue that I've heard from a lot of people, that we're not consistent. And that was a problem before we had this issue, right? So let's try to resolve that. Let's try to fix that. Let's, as a district, decide that our teachers are going to use whatever they choose, if it's Edmodo or, that isn't even the right one, Edleo. I don't think hardly anyone's using Edleo. But there's another one, anyway, I can't think of it. But, even the teams, all those things that we just need to be a little bit, it'd be better if we were just more consistent so that kids could find things without having to check multiple things. And then I would say that I will probably be an outlier in this, but I would say that if we're gonna keep the grades, and I like the idea of having letter grades for our kids. I think that we should not assume that anyone's checking out or anyone's checking in. I think kids keep working hard for the most part. But I do think that we need to give the pass-fail option, and I don't think it needs to be right away. It can be at the end of the school year. I don't think that's punitive. I don't think that's. I don't think that's too liberal of a policy. I don't think we know how this is going to end for people. So to sit here today and say, by gosh, you better figure it out in 2 weeks is ridiculous when we just do not know what the next 6 or 8 weeks are going to look like for people. And it's 6 or 8 weeks. This is not everyone's rest of their life. So I would be more amenable to having the decision be made later. Are there kids that are going to skate by that? Yeah, sure there are, right? We want kids to want to learn because they want to learn. And not everyone's going to want to. And the kids that have always learned and taught themselves, they're going to keep doing that because that's what they've, always done. Plenty of universities are letting kids decide when they want to have a pass-fail or a grade very late in their semester because people's situations are changing. So I think parents absolutely want letter grades because they want to, for the most part, because they want to have a reason to tell their kid to get up. They want to have, they want to have if we cut off, if we did the no harm grading and everyone got the grade that they had on March 13th or whatever the date was, you'd have kids that would have really no reason to check back into school. And we don't want that. Parents really do not want that. So even if kids are checking in with their teachers because they want to say hi and they want to be social, they want to see what people are up to, that's enough. That's actually great. They need that. So I hope that, Lindsay, you have enough information based upon what I said, what everybody else said, that we can craft something, because I don't think what we have is enough.
President Seymour, if I may?
Yes.
I think we need more direction. It's still too broad. We've had board members weigh in and say they like this and they like that. I don't think we have enough direction to craft something. Okay.
Well, then we'll keep working on it. So we know we are going to keep the grades, right? I think we've all decided we're going to have some system of grading. Now we just have to decide what we're going to do for the pass-fail option or the no-harm option. And I think that's probably the most difficult piece to get through. I don't know if the teachers, anybody wants to say anything based upon what I just said. I'm not sure how you think we're going to move from here. Oh, I didn't see you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'd be happy to just say just a couple things since we were talking and I was processing everything. First of all, I'm happy to promote and reinforce the messaging of grading with compassion. I mean, we came to this agreement in our committee, but we haven't really had a chance to share out our message with everybody short of this meeting right now. So please know that that's something I'm really happy to reinforce and like put out there for the teachers. Also, I want to say, please don't let a few bad apples spoil the bunch here, because we really have teachers that are knocking it out of the park and doing as much as they can. And I know we keep saying that, but I just want to reiterate that. And I know it's easy to fall into the trap of the few that are not doing what we want them to do. But I personally feel like, let me know who they are and I'll follow up with them. And then with regards to the elementary report card, essential standards, it's a huge push right now. It's something that we've been working on all year, but it's definitely even more critical right now, especially as we've gone from like this to this. So anyway, and I appreciate you guys acknowledging the fact that it is not easy for us to do this digitally, as we saw tonight, all the technical issues. Like this is kind of an everyday situation in our classrooms or our virtual classrooms. So, yeah. So the only other thing is I would say is if parents have concerns, that I would ask that they really reach out to their teacher, because a lot of times teachers don't know what's going on with students. I know at my site, I had a student who kind of fell off the grid for the first month that we were digitally going digital, and it was only this past week that I finally got him on board. So it's a constant struggle. I know parents are going through a whole lot at home too. I can't even imagine what it's like to have little ones at home. So I would just respectfully ask that the parents who are having concerns reach out to the teachers first, because a lot of times we just don't know, especially if we can't see them or we're not connecting. Yeah. We want to do the best for our kids. We want to meet them where they're at. It's just hard when we don't know either. So.
Right. Okay. Okay, Tim? Tim?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
You got me. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to respond to things that all board members said, basically. But Suzanne, to your earlier points, we have talked about every one of the issues you brought up. We've talked about in department chair meetings. I have a weekly English department meeting. I'm the English department chair at Peninsula. So every single one of your concerns has been discussed broadly. And we've talked about relaxing late standards. We've talked about, we have a system in place at Penn to find those kids that have disappeared. And we do have staff members calling and checking in on kids. And, a lot of the concerns that were raised are things that are actually, and I know you know this, but they're actually ongoing. And I think the mood is absolutely, what can we do to make sure every kid, regardless of her circumstances or his circumstances, can figure out a way to learn and improve a grade, feel connected, and do better. So that's our approach for sure.
Okay, good. All right, so Dr. Turnus wants more input from the board. Let me start with the first question. Does anyone on the board think that the current policy that we have that does offer grading changes based upon specific issues, if I'm saying that right, does anyone feel like that is enough and that we don't have to do anything different from what we already have?
No.
No, okay. Anybody, so no one thinks that's okay? No one say anything? I'm guessing that's fine. Okay, so that means we have to come up with something different, and it's on us to come up with something different. That's really how this is going to work. So I think we all agree we want to keep letter grades and come up with a way to offer either a pass-fail option or a no-harm option. Does that seem like we're going in the right direction?
Yeah, and I think Megan advocated both actually, but I do think that that's the way to think about it, is whether no harm would be something yes or no. And again, I'm not an advocate of no harm. I think it raises as many issues as it solves.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would be, my recommendation would be letter grades with an option for pass-fail. And then I'm flexible into to when that time would be when the students would have to make that declaration.
Okay. So I could probably live with that. So letter grades, and then and the letter grades based upon how the teachers are grading, not any time because of March or anything like that, just ongoing through the year. And then if students wanted to have an option for a pass-fail, we would have that option be available, and they'd have a date that we have to come up with to have that be approved. So is that right? Does that, Rick and Matt, is that?
I would support that.
Okay, so Megan and...
I'd support that, but I do think there's a question as to whether it's individual class pass-fail or your whole transcript for the semester. And I'm much more supportive of it being the whole transcript, because I think that, if you have a reason to go pass-fail, it's because of what's going on in your overall environment.
Your whole schedule.
I would agree with that. I think that if you're suffering a hardship, you're suffering a hardship in all your classes, not just one.
Right. So your entire schedule, right? Not just a specific class.
Linda, I'll go after you.
I disagree with that. I think, again, we have many, many different kinds of learners. There are kids who cannot do math unless they're taught, but they can write papers all day and vice versa. And so, and I'm talking about high school students mostly, but still some middle school students. Mm-hmm. So again, we're trying to alleviate anxiety. Listen to Joanne Lewis. We're trying to alleviate anxiety and help kids' mental health. And by forcing them to make a decision like that in all their classes at once it's not what's best for kids. It's also not what's best for kids to have this. And Cece, I appreciate what you're saying about the 95% who are doing great. I really, really do. But if you're a kid who has two of those teachers in the bottom 5% who aren't interacting with their kids, how can they possibly give a grade if they haven't looked at their kid and had a conversation with a student since Like, it's impossible. And so if you're going to give a grade like that, what are you going to do? Give everybody an A? Okay, I guess that alleviates anxiety, but that's not really helpful. So those are still my two kind of hangups there with that.
Okay.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Megan?
Yeah, I agree with Linda. As far as the pass-fail, I don't think it should be one size fits all for all classes. Every subject is different. And just like Linda said, especially for math, even the teachers that are doing virtual boards and all those things, it's not the same as being in class. So I don't think it's fair to make students have to make that choice for all of their classes. It should be as a per class basis for them to decide what they would like. And I'm still advocate for the no harm grading as well, like that being the main option, and pass fail later towards the end of the semester where they can. Sounds like, I'm not sure how Linda feels. Sounds like everyone else does not like the no harm grading. I'm
actually not a fan of the no harm grading. I think it's sort of an arbitrary time, and I understand what the teachers are saying. Like, what if we have to go back and do that again? And what do you? It's middle school where you've only been there a little while, Megan. So that's kind of why the no harm thing doesn't really. I don't think I agree with Rick. It creates more problems than it solves.
Okay. Well, that's good. So that means we won't even consider the no harm thing. I think that's the three people who are probably not fans of it. So we can work on our version of grades / pass fail at some point. I would agree that we should not assume all students can learn material on their own when, like Linda said, some are very good at some subjects and some really struggle at other subjects. I think that's fair. So you could have pass fail in classes and not your entire schedule. We have kids with vastly different teachers who are doing different things. And some teachers are really taking this opportunity to teach a lot more and give a lot more work, which kids really are struggling with too, right? So it's not always teachers that we don't think are doing a great job. Some are great teachers who are just assigning a lot more work than some kids can actually handle. Because kids are used to coming to school and learning from their teacher, and now they're at home learning from themselves or their 15-minute, lesson that they're learning. It's just a lot tougher. So I think I would go with the individual classes and not the entire schedule also. I think
Suzanne,
we need to discuss the date.
I would go with you on that as well.
Okay.
Right? No, that's all. You know, I was torn between the two. I could see Rick's point, but, you know, if this gets us to a point where we can let students know what's expected of them sooner than later, we're not going to have a perfect answer. Let's just get them a answer.
Okay. Thank you, Matt. I appreciate that. So then I think the next thing would be, what would be the date of when they have to decide if they can do pass-fail? And I would really, I know maybe I'm too, I don't know. I really feel like, honestly, a lot of this is my own personal experience with how this entire thing is going. You know, some days are great. Some days are really bad. You know, I don't want to make a decision that impacts my life on a really bad day. So I'd like to let our kids and our parents work together and decide on the pass-fail thing much later in the year, because we have so many unknowns still. And I don't, you know, if we can come up with a more flexible, you know, opportunity to choose, I would like that. Maybe somebody already knows that this is really a tough situation for them and it's not going to improve, and they can make a pass-fail determination and move on. But I don't know there's any big rush for that. Our hard-working kids that always try hard, who will keep trying hard, you know, the pass-fail is not going to be a big deal for them. They're not going to pick. They're not going to choose it probably. So the date of when we allow that is probably the next thing that the five of us have to figure out. So do you want to have that later like I want to, or does somebody want to advocate to make it sooner? And we're going to meet again on May, I think it's the 13th, right? May 13th. By May 13th, we really should have a sense of if we're going to go back to school at all this year. And I keep saying we might go back because I really hope we do. But we'll have a sense by May 13th when we could approve some kind of a resolution as to how the year is going to end. So we won't be making a decision before that, because we're not going to, unless we have another meeting, a special meeting in the middle, we're not going to have that meeting. So anyone have thoughts about the timing on pass-fail?
My thought would be, you know, I would love to see a rubric come out so that students know what to expect. And then after they see that rubric, they can make the decision whether they want to go pass-fail or take a letter grade. Now, if circumstances change, I think we can continue that option. I think Rick had mentioned earlier where you can petition to the principal or to the to a designee saying that you had to change the circumstance and now you want to go to pass-fail. But that would be done on a case-by-case basis for those who have chosen past the cutoff date. And I just think that it's important to get students to, you know, to own up to what they're going to do. Like, I'm going to do grades and I'm going to focus on my grades, right? And then you'd have to have a reason not to then focus on your grades.
And our counselors, I'm sure, can play a role in helping kids determine whether pass-fail makes more sense or grades.
I can see that.
I'm thinking, right?
So just one more quick question, since it seems like we're going with the grading as is. So hypothetically, and I'm asking, right, this is an actual question. So hypothetically, we're going to continue grading as is. So whatever that looks like, in a gracious way, helping students. So does that mean that this means that students' grades will be able to go down from where the middle of March was? And let's say hypothetically, again, they have all of these extenuating circumstances at home, like they have health issues with family or technology issues or whatever, and grade is going to go down because of that.
Well, that's why we would have the pass-fail option. So a child could say, I have these issues. I choose not to take a grade, and I'm going to get a pass-fail option. That's really the point of it, is it not?
Yeah.
I mean, I think the grading won't be the same, Megan, as it is today, because we're not in the same environment. Teachers aren't doing the same thing. All of them are not assigning the same amount of work. So like Tim Coleman had said, Dr. Coleman, that, you know, he's looking for ways to give kids more opportunities to make more points. I think a lot of teachers are doing that, right? So would never say things are just like they're not going to stay the same, because I don't think they are staying the same at all. I know, at least just what my own child is doing, that his teachers are very flexible with due dates. I kind of wish they'd be a little bit less flexible sometimes. I'm like, really? But I get it, right? It's for all the kids. So that makes sense. So I don't think this is business as usual, and I wouldn't characterize the grading as business as usual. Cece has said, that they are going to work very hard on grading with compassion, and I think that the vast majority of our teachers are good people, and they want kids to be successful, but they actually do want kids to come to class and show up if they can, and not play, Xbox till 4 a.m. and then not want to make their 9 o'clock Zoom. Parents need tools also to tell their kid to go to bed and get up for school the next day. So, anyway, Linda, did you want to add anything about the pass-fail cutoff time, or when you think we might implement that?
No, I think it's fine either way. I think the colleges that are waiting till the end have good reasons for doing that, but I'm not going to follow my sword over that one. There's other parts of this that bother me more.
Okay. Hang on. Let me ask you about that in a minute. So, Lindsay, it sounds like regardless of the date that we choose, a student will always have the opportunity to petition the grade or petition the pass-fail option. Is that what you said earlier?
So with what I'm hearing is we would create a process in order for them to do that.
Right. But I thought you had said that there was something that, I don't know, something in CDE that said that in this case, students will always be, that they had some different kind of opportunity now to petition grades, to challenge grades that they didn't normally. I thought you said that earlier. Maybe I'm wrong.
I thought it was also the alternative grading options that Lindsay mentioned.
Yeah.
I think maybe a couple of different things that I said. So one of the things in our current grading policy, when students do have extenuating circumstances, the school teams work together to come up with what is the best option for students. So that would be whether we're online or whether we're face-to-face when we have order to support those kids. But what I'm hearing from the board is that we want to create a process for students to be able to petition individual classes in order to put in a pass-fail.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the word petition would mean. I don't really think we need to have some onerous process. I think kids should just be able to choose.
I agree. I mean, I think if you're going to go with which seems to be where everybody else wants to go, to the individual pass-fail option, the petition doesn't make sense. It just becomes the choice of the student, and pick a date. I don't think the policy that some colleges have. I mean, some colleges have actually said we're going to let you go pass no credit after you see your grade.
Yeah.
I don't think that that's where we should end up. I propose that when AP testing starts is an appropriate time, because that's when most of the content in most classes has been taught. But I think once you've already gone to individual class choice, I think no petition should be necessary.
Okay, Linda, what were you wanted to mention that you said you were that you did not that you had an issue with?
First, before I forget, I just want to thank our teachers for being here so late into the evening with us. I can barely see my screen, but it looks like 10 something. So thank you.
It's late.
I feel like I'm just really torn. I feel like the anxiety piece is still there for our kids, and I just feel like kids who aren't getting instruction, who are doing what Rick called correspondence courses, that they can't possibly be given a grade. There are kids who aren't getting the opportunities that Mr. Coleman is offering his students. God bless him. And so that's the part that worries me. But at the same time, I really feel like being motivated to be in class is really critical. If you're taking math or a foreign language, you've got to get this content for this year. You can't go till next year. If you're taking Spanish 3 right now, you've got to learn all the material, right? So I'm kind of torn on some of it. The grades are fine. I feel like only when kids are getting the instruction. And if they're not getting the live instruction in any way, shape, or form, they can't possibly be given a grade in that class.
I hope after tonight,
minority, but it's to me it's an issue, because kids aren't going to be harmed in the college process with regardless of what we decide and what they decide.
Right. I do hope after tonight that it's become very clear to everyone listening, right, that we all expect teachers to teach, and we all expect some live teaching, whether that's video that you record and kids watch it, whatever it is. So I'm hoping that encourages the teachers who have not taken that step yet to take that step. And I know Dr. Katanda will keep working on that, and we have our framework we're working on for instruction. So I hope things keep getting better. We are offering our teachers a lot of professional development. And honestly, the more you use these tools, it does get easier. I don't know that it gets more comfortable. I mean, most of us don't like seeing ourselves on screen. I think it's kind of a drag. I did read an article about how it's exhausting to watch yourself. And I'm like, yeah, no kidding. So I try to do audio calls all the time when I can and not have to be on the screen, because I just think it's easier and less cumbersome. So I think things will improve after tonight for some of our kids, because I think the teaching will, change. And I think Cece's leadership will help with all of our teachers understanding that, our kids really need them. We're relying on them. So I feel like we've given you a lot more concrete information, Lindsay. Let me know if you don't think we have. But I think Rick's comment about AP testing, that kind of deadline for high school does kind of make sense. You figure that's pretty close to the end of the year. You kind of have a sense of what is left at that point. Have we given you enough to draft something that we would call, or not draft, but, come up with a resolution so that we can approve that in May and get that, kind of on the docket to be approved in May?
Can I just clarify? So if we have the date that students have to choose prior to the start of AP testing or the end of AP testing?
I think
because our board meeting is right in the middle of it.
Okay. Honestly, Rick mentioned that date. I don't think that date's a hard date. I think that he came up with the beginning of AP testing because that's kind of when he thought instruction ended for a lot of classes, but I don't know that that's really true of all kinds of classes, just AP classes. But I think because we're going to meet May 13th, I don't know. The deadline, May 20th, yeah. Let's just think about that. And I think something like, middle of May makes sense. Knowing that our kids can. So that would be a form you fill out. Your parent signs it, you sign it. I only want to take a pass-fail in period 3, right? Whatever that is. Then you could have another process, I hate to make more work for you, where a child at the end of the semester says, I want pass-fail. And it's maybe more of a petition situation because of whatever, that they didn't make that choice earlier, they're going to make it later, or, whatever kind of process you want to call that.
Okay, I think we got
And then just to clarify, this choice for pass-fail would be for high school only, or does this apply to intermediate as well?
I'm thinking it's a high school and intermediate school thing. That was my thought, but I'm flexible on that. I mean, does anybody on the board feel strongly one way or the other?
I would agree with that, Suzanne.
I'd be much more on the side of petitioning for all grades pass-fail and only under more exceptional circumstances at middle school, just because of the way that middle school grades are actually used versus the way that high school grades are used.
Well, and the problem, go on. And the problem is middle school only had 1 week of the third trimester, right? So that's tough because it's literally 1 week of grades.
Yeah, I would chime in to say that we could even go back to the end of trimester 2. That was one thing we discussed in our teacher meeting.
Yeah. So I think we're flexible on how you think that makes the most sense. That is a different kind of dynamic than, high school because the timing is different.
So, Suzanne, sorry, can you go back to what I've missed it because there's a lot going on. What are people advocating for the pass-fail date?
Middle of May.
And why can't we give them until the end?
Well, they would have to the end if they also, we were talking about 2 different dates. So one that would be middle of May, where a child would just, with their parents, sign a paper saying, I'm going to take whatever this class is, pass, fail. And then maybe a different process for the very end of the school year if a child wanted to petition the principal to be pass, fail, because they didn't decide to do it in May, in the middle part of May.
And I guess I want it from obviously I don't want a lot of work for the office or whoever with the petitions, but also I want it to be easy for kids and not give them anxiety. I want them to be able to have the choice up until the end in a not difficult way. I don't know. I mean, I really need to think through this more. I think the middle of May, the end of the school year, is not very different in time. It's not like it's weeks and weeks. It's honestly 2 to 3 weeks more of school than, the original deadline. So I'm going to ask Dr. Gotanda to think about that, think about what we said, think about what makes sense. Maybe we can individually write to her. I would have been okay having it be the end of the school year. I don't think that's the end of the world. That is what universities are doing. I think that the students that want to do pass-fail are going to know pretty quickly. I just want to make sure that we have an opportunity for students that have something happen between now and the end of the year that they didn't anticipate, that they can make a change that makes sense for them.
I think we have our parameters.
You do? Okay.
Yes.
Is very late night. Okay, so 10:25 on this. Wow. Thanks to our teachers for hanging in there with us. Thank you for all you do. And we have more of our meeting ahead of us, sadly to say, but I hope it's a little faster than the beginning part of the meeting. And anybody else on the board that wants to share anything more with Dr. Gotanda, please email her anything that I didn't hear, that we didn't cover, that you're worried about, okay? One thing I did want to mention on the report cards and for elementary and even for middle school and high school, I think it'd be fun for our students to be able to say what they've learned. What did they learn this semester that they would have never learned before? Because our kids are learning different things. Might be kind of, just trying to put some little fun and levity into the night. So, okay. So if that's it, moving right along, are we ready to move on?
Suzanne, I'm just wondering, do you want me to reread Mrs. Messia's full comment, or do we want to?
I forgot that. I'm so sorry. Yes, go ahead and read the full comment that she wrote that we didn't finish. I'm sorry. Yes.
Okay. This comment is from Sylvia Messia. Will we get information on the agreement, and what is it about with the teachers union? Also, what types of accountability do we have for teachers? Some are teaching, others are not, and are canceling classes randomly for no apparent reason and not rescheduling. Are there systems in place to see established use of Zoom, since school district is still sticking with that platform? Again, where are the systems to hold accountable for instruction live and interactive? For if not the whole time, they would have been providing in classroom at high schools 2-hour classes. Now that we are lucky to get 45 minutes of instruction of vastly differing quality. Our students' education is lacking, and teachers are still not being asked to provide grades nor instruction as required by law. Do we not get dollars for students' attendance during the school year? Why would that not be the same now? A few of my daughter's teachers actually take roll and require video on and audio on for comments and replies to interaction. Not the majority, though. So are we in default because we cannot show that we have students in classes? I have teachers who have not provided a single graded item for this semester, even the semester before as well. Is this acceptable? What is the MOU about, and will it be posted somewhere so we as parents have a set of expectations for instruction so as to assist our students in being successful in the new reality? And also then we can provide feedback to see if this works at all. Right now, we're in the dark. Some video conferencing platforms can establish attention of users. What metrics are in the MOU for teachers for student participation and assignment metrics as well, and then the graded results? Some AP teachers are not teaching to the new standards for the modified AP tests, so our students are left to fend for themselves with some parent assistance. So what is the responsibility of these teachers? So now all comments go to our principals. I thought that the grading system as announced by district was staying with number and letter grades as before this situation occurred. Are some teachers able to set up their own grading system? I thought we all had to have the same standard of grading for equity.
Okay. Is that the end of the comment? Jana?
Yes, that's the end of it.
All right. So thank you. So I'm glad we got to hear that. And just for anyone listening still, so the MOUs that were approved are online on the agenda. So you go to the superintendent's report, and under his report, both MOUs are PDF files that you can read. And so everyone is clear on that. All right. So let's move on then to, so grading will come back and we will approve a resolution, or we'll try to, if we get consensus, in the May, I think it's May 13th meeting. So grades are still grades, and we are going to have a pass-fail option. All right. Thank you, everyone. This has been a tough conversation. It's hard when everyone's in the room, actually, and it's really hard when we're not in the room. All right. And by the way, my board members, my daughter has been doing a lot of gardening, and she's been making all these little plants, and we're giving them away. And I was going to bring everyone a plant tonight, and then it dawned on me I'm not going to see any of you. So I don't even know your addresses. I don't even know where you live. But anyway, we will meet again one day, and I can give you your plants. Okay, so let's move to P2, ratification of independent audit services contract. And that would be Brenna, I'm assuming.
I thank you. Dr.
Uh-oh, we can't hear her.
She just cut out.
Oh, her mic's off.
Yes.
There we go, Brenna.
I haven't muted it. We good?
You're good now.
Okay. Dr. Chernus and board members, I'm presenting the Independent Audit Services contract for approval and ratification. Following our interviews that took place on March 11th, we were directed to notify Edie Bailey of their selection. On March 12th, we received their contract, of which was executed during the closure, if you will. Please note that this also reflects an additional discount than previously reflected in their proposal. And if anybody has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now.
All right, thank you. I do appreciate the flexibility in going back to them and asking them to change their pricing a little bit lower, and that they did that. So that was, I know, considered kind of an unusual ask, and it went our way. So I do appreciate that. Do we have anybody from the board that has any comments on that, or are ready to move on and approve that? No comments, no questions?
No, thanks to Rick for making, for suggesting that we go out and say, hey,
yep.
let's have some save for more money. So that's awesome. So I would like to move that we approve. Oh my God, I don't have my agenda in front of me. That we ratify the independent audit services contract for 3 years with Edie Bailey.
Perfect. All right, that's P2. He's moving that we approve that. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
I didn't hear the second. Sorry. Linda. Okay, Linda's a second. All right, so I'm sorry, but we have to do roll call vote for every vote. So Suzanne Seymour, yes. Rick Phillips?
Aye.
Megan?
Yes.
Matt?
Aye.
Linda?
Yes.
Okay, that's a 5-0 pass. Thank you very much. Approval of request for proposals for re-roofing and repairs at Dapplegray, Merrill Est, Ridgecrest, Palos Verdes High, and Peninsula High. So this is item P3.
Okay. So for P3, we're presenting the RFP with our advertisement. We are requesting to send it out to solicitation, and we will also be sending it out to additional interested parties that have contacted us over the past year. So just know that we will be working towards getting as many proposals as we can. The district carpenters did walk all of our sites. We did do a full reassessment. It has been 7 years since we did do such a reassessment. And based on the recommendations from the last board meeting, when we approved Beam as our contractor to help us with this endeavor, we have now identified the 5 locations, being Dapplegray, Merrill Est Intermediate, Ridgecrest Intermediate, Palos Verdes High, and Peninsula High.
Okay, great. Do I have any board members that have any questions specifically to any parts of P3?
So, Brenda, how was it with working with Beam this time versus Atlas last time in terms of developing the RFP?
I had a little bit more involvement right now with Beam, given that Mr. Kamabayashi left us on February 14th. So I was in the meeting with the 2 carpenters. Beam, Sean has been fantastic to work with, very flexible to work with, and very detailed. I mean, Atlas did a great job too. I had limited exposure in my capacity at that point.
Okay, and then one of the issues that I think we've had with some of our packages is whether it really gives enough information to bid. And I can't read a roof plan, but so does this give more information to really define the scope of work that's required here?
Honestly, I think because we did revisit it and redevise the scope of what our needs are and what needs to be done on them, because we were working off of a 7-year plan prior. I think that Beam has done an excellent job identifying what our most immediate needs are within the budget that we wanted to spend. And in doing so, I think we also kind of looked and addressed some of the seismic issues of the buildings to where we are fixing the current issues, but we're not going all out to where, depending on where we were with the bond and stuff, and that was an unknown at the time, we were able to flex either way with the recommendation that you see before you right now. So I don't know. Overall, I'm very happy.
Okay. And then one technical thing on the roofing RFP Exhibit A. So you have this checklist of mandatory bid forms on page 7.
Yes.
It doesn't include my favorite page, which is actually unnumbered in here, which is the certification after the non-collusion one, but the certification of disclosures. So if you could add that to the mandatory checklist and give it some page number, I'd appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Very good. You can tell me read everything. That's awesome. Thank you, Rick. Anything else from anybody else on P3? Okay. Well, hearing nothing further, do I have a motion to move that item?
Sure. I'll move that the board authorize the Sixth Shaft solicitor an RFP seeking proposals for re-roofing and repairs at Dapplegray, Merrill Est, Ridgecrest, PV High, and Peninsula High, with that one amendment to the mandatory bid documents that we discussed.
Great. Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you. So, again, roll call vote. Linda Reed?
Yes.
Matt Brock?
Aye.
Megan Crawford?
Yes.
Richard Phillips?
Aye.
Suzanne Seymour, aye. That's a 5-0 pass. Okay, P4, approval of California School Boards Association Gamut Service Agreement. Trent, this, I believe, was pulled once before because you were unable to join us at a meeting, but I don't think anything's changed on the item. Is that true?
That's correct. Nothing's changed. It was just we tabled the item because I was ill at that last meeting. So right. If there's any questions, just a quick recap. This is for Gamut Services, which is, there's 3 components to it. There is the Gamut Policy Plus, and then Gamut Meetings, which is basically the new platform that will replace Agenda Online. And the newer features are, there's some advanced features that they have for navigation, for search, for creating the agendas, for some greater flexibility. Jan and I have both gone through some of the training. If the board approves it, then our next steps would be to begin transitioning and training staff on how to develop the agendas, as well as work with the board on new processes and procedures.
Okay, great. Thank you. And we did have a few, 2 months ago, 3 months ago, we had a long conversation about other options, and we did a lot of homework on this before we got here, thinking we might change, and every other option was actually super expensive. We made a bunch of tweaks to this. It's by far the least expensive thing we can do, I believe, and we changed how we post our meetings so that they're indexed so people can follow different parts of the meeting much easier. So we made a bunch of improvements, honestly. Thank you so much about that. And so now we're back to the program that we are currently using. So anyone that's listening still, this would be how you look up board policies online, is the Gamut Services. So do I have any board questions or comments on P4? Do I have anyone willing to make a motion to pass it? Somebody better read the agenda and pass this, because we cannot go on.
That the board approves the California School Boards Association Gamut Service Agreement beginning July 1st, 2020, as presented.
Thank you. And do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you so much. And again, we have to do it out loud. So, so Linda, are you in favor, or yes or yay or nay?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. And Matt Brock?
Aye.
Megan Crawford?
Yes.
Richard Phillips?
Aye.
And myself, aye. So that passes 5-0. All right. Approval of resolution number 9, certification of signatures. P5. This is essentially just kind of a housekeeping thing. When we change staff, we have to change signatures out. Do we have any board questions from anybody on this item? Nope. Okay. Do we have anybody? Can I get a motion to approve?
I move that the resolution number 9, 2019-20, certification of signatures.
All right. Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. Thank you. And let's see. Who is in favor? Linda Reed?
Yes.
Matt Brock?
Aye.
Megan Crawford?
Yes.
Richard Phillips?
Aye.
Suzanne Seymour? Aye. That's 5-0. Okay. Thank you very much. Now, number 6, P6, resolution number 10, ordering the governing board member election on November 3, 2020. Seems like a long time away, but I guess it's really not. So this is ordering the election of the school board in November, and you file in July. So we had plenty of time to file this, but this gives people plenty of notice if they are interested in running for the school board. So do I have any questions, comments, or do I have a motion to approve that?
Move approval of P6.
Thank you so much. And do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All right, and let's go ahead and vote. Linda Reed?
Yes.
Matt Brock?
Aye.
Megan Crawford?
Yes.
Richard Phillips?
Aye.
Suzanne Seymour, aye. That's a 5-0 vote. Okay, P7, acceptance of gifts. So we get gifts every month, or not every month, but most months. And we like to have them posted so that everyone can see, actually, the gifts that are given to the district by our schools and our families and all different kinds of organizations, our PTAs and our boosters and such. So does anybody, Matt or anyone, have anything they want to mention on this item?
$66,000 in these times coming from our schools and our PTAs. And want to thank them for that, and also might as well take this opportunity to thank the PTAs for donating all the emergency supplies that went out to the hospitals. I mean, our PTAs do so much for our schools. As you can see, the donations here and the donations to our community. So just a big thank you to them.
Yes, our schools would not be the same without our PTAs and booster clubs. Absolutely. So do I have anyone to make a motion on approving that?
I move that the board accept the gifts of material supplies and $66,999.10 in cash received February 26, 20 through March 31st, 2020 be accepted as presented.
Great. Do I have a second? Did I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. All right, now we will vote. Linda Reed?
Yes.
Matt Brock?
Aye.
Megan Crawford?
Yes.
Richard Phillips?
Aye.
And myself, aye. That's 5-0 vote. Okay, moving right along to the consent calendar. So let me start with, sorry, I'm trying to do two things over here. So consent, do we have anything to pull off of consent tonight? Let me ask board members to speak up.
So I want to pull Q1A and Q4A.
Q1A, Q4. Okay, that's for Rick.
Suzanne, we have a public comment on Q3D, the purchase order assignment or the purchase order report.
Thank you, Jana. I hope we didn't have public comments on anything else we just went through because I didn't even ask you.
No, we're good.
So you have a public comment on Q3D.
Yes.
Okay, let me get to that in 1 second. Does anybody else want to pull anything else off of consent tonight? No. Okay. So, Jenna, go ahead and give us the public comment on Q3D, the purchase order report.
Okay, we have a comment from Sylvia Messia and would like to know why about 16%, about $93,000 of total expenditures in solely 4 transactions are blanked out and non-transparent as to what entities these 4 so very large expenditures are going to. Also, these are marked as miscellaneous and not categorized as a budget item, nor are they assigned to a site or district-wide. What is the reason for vendor ID being blanked out, and what are these large expenditures for? Why were they blanked out? It's 2/5 total, $47,405. Date February 12th, $30,000. Date February 13th, $16,000. Who decides what item blanked out and what criteria is applied?
So generally things are blacked out for privacy reasons. So pupil services is generally almost a reimbursement to parents or a legal agreement. I don't know, Lindsay, if you want to. The ones that say pupil services, aren't those generally for?
Yes, those are to parents. Those are the redactions are because it has student or parent information.
So it's
private. So it's by law that we blank these out.
Yes.
When it says pupil services, right? It went to.
Right. These are settlements more than likely.
Settlements or reimbursements.
Right.
Typically.
Okay. So, just so that's clear. Very good. All right. So let me go ahead then and take Q2A, Q3A, Q3B, Q3C, Q3D, Q3E, and see if we can get a motion to pass these consent items.
So moved.
And do I have a second? Okay, great. Let's see. We're going to vote. All in favor. Linda Reed?
Yes.
Matt Brock?
Aye.
Megan Crawford?
Yes.
Rick Phillips?
Aye.
And Suzanne Seymour, aye. That's a 5-0 pass. Now let's take the 2 items that Rick pulled. Q1A.
So on Q1A, I think Brian has done a great job for us, in director purchasing position, and we're elevating her in an acting position to assistant superintendent. But I believe we should strike the change in